All right, welcome to the Gateless podcast. My name is Haley Ingram, and I'm going to be your host today. I'm just going to go ahead and read from my laptop. I'm so excited to share a unique conversation with Jasmine Star, a world-class speaker, thought leader, podcast host, CEO, and entrepreneur. My journey with Jasmine began last year when I applied for her mastermind that she led. I was actually really concerned that I was going to get rejected from applying from your mastermind because I have a very similar business to Jasmine. I have Coffee and Contracts, which is a service for real estate agents where we provide social media tools, and Jasmine's Social Curator does pretty much the same thing, but for everyone. However, I was met with nothing but openness. I was completely blown away by the transparency and information Jasmine shared with me during our first call. Jasmine's mentorship has been nothing short of generous and transformative for me, and she is truly the definition of abundance mindset, so I'm super excited to have you here. So today I had a coaching session with Jasmine for the past few hours, and we've decided to open up the last hour of our session for you, our listeners, to offer transparent insight into our industries. I think a lot of the questions that I have for Jasmine will resonate with other business owners. And for the listeners, here's a quick background on the businesses that we're going to be talking about. In 2019, I started a company called Coffee and Contracts. We are a membership service providing social media templates, tools, and trainings to real estate agents to help them build their brand online. And a few months ago, Kara Caruso and I launched a new project called Gateless, this podcast. We want to create a community for women founded around the concept of anti-gatekeeping and abundance. So welcome, Jasmine, the queen of abundance in my eyes.
Aww, that's nice, Haley.
So thank you so much for joining me for this. I'm super excited.
Thank you.
And can you tell our listeners a little bit about you and your journey?
Yes, but like more than anything, we started the conversation like I want to be here to serve the Gateless community. So I'm going to keep it short, and then we can add on other questions and details as it pertains to the story. So essentially, first generation Latina. I'm the first in my family to go to college, the first to go to law school, first in my family to ever start a business. I didn't think I could start a business. I was 26 years old, and I was like, maybe Google and YouTube can help me figure it out. And I started off as a photographer. Then I started creating content for myself, and then creating content for other businesses. And then I started consulting with other businesses on how they could do it since I didn't want to be that person. And then I decided that I wanted to start creating courses. I wanted to serve more people without me trading time for dollars. And then thereafter launched a membership called Social Curator. And since then, we've transitioned Social Curator from a membership to a subscription. And so now I'm officially a CEO of a tech company.
Oh, I love that. Okay, awesome. So let's just jump right back into the coaching. So we've had like a few hours before this where we were talking about some in-depth stuff. But I wanted to save some of the questions for our audience to get to listen in on too, that I thought that applies to a lot of people that I talk with, a lot of business owners and people wanting to start businesses. So the first thing, the hot topic that I wanted to talk about is just content strategy. So for me, I have been struggling with posting consistent content on Coffee and Contracts and Gateless, like multiple platforms, different businesses. So I wanted to get your take on content strategy and just like any insights for building that out. I've always been like a post when I get inspired kind of person, but do you have any I feel like you're really consistent with posting. So I'm curious what you do with that.
Well, first and foremost, I think it's gonna be like understand what it is you want to do. Like right now, you're asking a lot of yourself, right? You have CNC, you have Gateless, and then you're building out the Haley Ingram brand. That's 3 avenues, and so then you just have to give yourself grace. It's like, do you want to show up for the same in all of them, or do you want to prioritize the one that is the most monetary, beneficial to you? And so more than anything, it's just to pick how much you're going to do and then stick with it.
Yeah.
And so there was a time, especially on social media, with updating the algorithm, when things were completely chronological, I would be like, well, you want to post a lot. Like, post a lot because you just want to be seen a lot. And then the algorithm really changed it. Like, if that post is not going to get a just amount of engagement, then I would be very judicious around what I am putting out. So in the beginning, I would be like, yo, like, post as much as humanly possible.
Yeah.
I think I've really amended it to be like, do as much as you can, but 3 times a week is really a good, strong place to start. So then you just have to ask yourself, what do I need to do to show up 3 times a week? At the time of this recording, I am posting once a day on Instagram and Facebook, and 4 times a week on LinkedIn. We're posting 2 or 3 times on YouTube, and we send a weekly newsletter. So the way that we think about this, and like, am I getting in the weeds?
No,
Okay.
This is great.
So the way that we think about this is, I don't want to be chained to content. And so because I don't want to be chained to content, then I look at everything as what can I do to put it in certain buckets. And so there's this thing called context switching, to where if you're doing a lot of different things, your brain doesn't know how to optimize for its peak performance. And so whenever I am writing, I want to be bucketing that time. I'm going to write, and I'm just going to stay writing, and I'm not going to do anything else. When I am creating content, I am just creating content. So my mind can always think of like, well, where are we going to cut it? Where does this edit go? What is the transition? What should I be saying? What's the hook? What's the takeaway? And so because I'm preparing all of that content in one time, I look at my calendar every single month, and I'm like, when am I going to create YouTube videos? When am I going to create shorts? Like, when am I going to create for Instagram? And so I just look at it as one day is going to be focused entirely on creating content, and I try to maximize as much as humanly possible for that. So 1 day a month, we will be creating content for Meta, so Facebook and Instagram. And then another day a month, we'll be creating content for YouTube. And so what we want to do for YouTube is get our long form video. Most of the time, that's a podcast. So it's like 45 to 60 minutes. And then from that 45 to 60 minute video, we're taking the audio, we're using it for the podcast. That video goes up into YouTube. And then from that, we're trying to create around 3 or 4 shorts from that. And so those shorts are going to be on YouTube, but we can also repurpose them onto Meta as well. Now, I don't know if you've experienced this, but sometimes like the best performing reels on Instagram are going to be like catchy, moving, sometimes a little like face, big action, big eyes. That works great for Meta, but when you put it out on YouTube, it's less that. On YouTube, people actually are going for search-based intent. They want to know, how do I make coffee? How do I find a house? And so in that regard, the shorts are a little bit slower moving, but they're all value-driven. They're less like trendy. They're less pointy and dancey. And so we've kind of had to straddle the line of what goes on each platform so that it feels like native to it.
Yeah.
That was like super geeky. We geeked out. Sorry.
No, that was good. I feel like so many questions came up. So you create specific content for shorts, or do you cut them from your YouTube videos?
We cut them from our YouTube videos, but then there are some reels that are what I think super value driven. It's like if I were to say like 3 things not to do when you're hiring a personal assistant, then that is a perfect YouTube short title. 3 things not to do. Then I would just have to make sure that like the thumbnail looks appropriate, that the verbiage on that. But would I be doing something with a trendy voiceover on YouTube? Probably not. People aren't searching for that.
That's a good point. Okay. So when your email newsletter as well, you have that.
Yes.
Is that what you're writing during that block? Okay.
Yes.
That's so interesting. Okay, that makes me think of Cody Sanchez,
Yeah. Yes.
So she does like her podcast, she has her email newsletter, but she reads her email newsletter for her podcast.
So that's one of the things that I've been focusing on, because what I was doing was creating a newsletter that was separate from YouTube content. And so while we still be going in that direction, we had all of this content from the newsletter where I'm actually teaching people things that just lived in the newsletter and then in a blog post. So we wanted to make sure that our newsletter was going into a blog post, because for search engine optimization, going and living in just a newsletter, it's beautiful, but it was just out in the ether.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to make sure that somebody was searching for what that particular thing they could find on the blog. But then I started realizing, well, wait a minute. YouTube is the 2nd largest search engine, and we already have content that's been done. However, our goal, we're far from it, but this year, a big push for YouTube would be, how can we create content that is 60 minutes ago? And so I thought, like, we can do this, and it's been really hard. So what I decided to do was to get 2 newsletters that were similar in nature, and then make that into a podcast. So instead of just reading 1 newsletter, I'd be reading 3 newsletters around a similar topic that we would then be able to create into a video and extrapolate the audio for the podcast. We're really about how can we get the most amount of content from one singular thing.
Wow. And you spend 1 day writing and recording all of it, or
no,
writing separate day?
Writing. And now, so when we talk about writing, it's like, yes, I'm going to be writing my weekly newsletter, and I will be writing other things like keynotes that I'm going to be giving, or thought pieces that I need to build on over time. Like, I have a vision. I don't even know if it's actually going to work, but I want to build small pieces of content for YouTube. And these are going to be like 12 to 13 minutes. And so I'm writing and I finish my thought. I'm like, this is it. I'm not going to add more just to get to 60 minutes.
Yeah.
So right now I'm just giving myself grace to create these small pieces of content. And so these are like, how do you know you're burnt out as an entrepreneur? This is like based on articles that I've read.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, wow, I have a thought about what I read, but it's not 60 minutes worth. So we just kind of keep on creating these 10 to 13 minutes videos. And people have told me, well, that doesn't really do much on YouTube. Like it doesn't push your hours watched. It doesn't do much. I have a vision though, like maybe in the middle of 2024, my writing pieces will get more than 10 or 13 minutes. So what if I read a cool article about hiring millennials and what it looks like? So then I could talk about 20 minutes about that. But then I can go and get an old video and then put it in to the new video and then an old video and put it into the new video. So now I'm going to be batching content that is search based on elongated content. So I will be able to repurpose a video that I had created a year or year and a half before as part of like a big thought leader piece. So I don't know. We'll still in the process of doing that. But I just wanted to stack my content so that I can get over the 60-minute mark because that's where YouTube is going. And I think, I think mostly probably recently what I've been most known for is like my growth on Instagram. But I went totally dark on YouTube for, I don't know, like 3 years. And so I started this YouTube channel with literally no mics, no lights, nothing. I just turned on a camera and I started talking about what I was doing in photography. And they were like the ugliest, worst videos. Like I had this big whiteboard and I would just write like key points and you could see my eyes moving off and I'd be reading the whiteboard and then turning back to the camera.
Yeah.
But then I started just doing like, oh, I did a video like how to change your lens or how to make your own bouquet and shoot it. I was making content for photographers who were aspiring and they wanted to practice, but just didn't have enough way to do that. So these videos were getting hundreds of thousands of views. And then I just stopped because I was like, I don't want to talk about photography anymore. And so I stopped. And that's like my biggest freaking regret. I should have continued creating content in the suck, in the messy middle.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm doing right now. I'm literally creating content like in the suck and the messy middle. There are things I can't talk 60 minutes about because I haven't done it enough, but I could talk 10 minutes. And so I'm just going to sit and create in the suck. And sometimes they're like, well, what is your new thought leadership? Like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I'm in the middle of it, but I'm going to talk my way out of it and I'm going to document it.
I love that. It's like paying the suck tax.
Yes. Maybe that's the title of the episode, paying the suck tax.
No, we did a post on that. We were like, it's the suck tax is what you have to pay to get good at something. You
Absolutely.
have to keep practicing it over and over again.
And the crazy thing about the tax is that you pay the most when you're the worst. Like you pay less the better you get.
Yeah,
so
you have to
hurry
get
up.
over that hill.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like that really helped me. And you have a team, or you hired like a content creator or someone who helps you record reels. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And do they do it with like a phone or like a camera?
So we have a mix. We use DSLR and we use a phone.
Okay.
And so that's why like I will create my own reels on my phone without being intimidated because I can. And some of the content that's done the best for us is on the back of a phone.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like that was super helpful. So let's talk a little bit about personal branding. I feel like this is a huge topic. I don't know if that's just right now or always, or maybe it's just a big topic on my mind right now. But personal branding, honestly, like really freaks me out. Like I hate the word. I feel like there needs to be I need to change the term personal branding to something else. Cause I don't know. Does that make sense? It just freaks me out.
No, I hear it often. And I never set out to create a personal brand. I didn't even think that
I think that's the key. I think I'm thinking about it too much, like as a personal brand. But basically, I just wanted to talk a little bit about building a personal brand as someone who's like more of an introverted entrepreneur. And maybe take me back to like when you didn't realize you were building a personal brand. What were you doing in the beginning that kind of led to?
I think before we get there, Haley, we should just like work on rebranding it right now because I don't think that you're going to fully like receive everything that you need to receive. So how about we call it your moneymaker?
Okay.
How about we call it like your fast pass? Like, you know, to get Disneyland.
Yeah.
Like this is your fast pass,
ticket.
The golden ticket, Willy Wonka. Like we need to rebrand it and simply say like, I know people would never believe it. I am like on a scale of 1 to 10 introvert, I'm a 12. And so people are like, yeah, but you're an outgoing introvert. And I'm like, no, honey, I'm an introvert's introvert.
You just get your energy from being alone rather than
100%. And I get really uncomfortable being in front of a camera. I get really uncomfortable doing things that make me uncomfortable, but I want a lot of money. I want a business.
Yeah.
I want to be proud. And
You want freedom and
I
flexibility.
want, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so here's the thing. On the other side of getting what you want is consistency. And we don't get to choose what's important at that time. There was a time in human history where the radio was how you built your business. Like, that's how most people do. And then some people are like, oh, my voice isn't right for radio. And then it moved into maybe newspapers. I'm like, I'm not the best writer. And then it moved into TV. Well, I got a face for radio. Like, everybody has always had an excuse, and many of us don't get to choose what the platform is at that time. But I promise you, if it was like deep sea diving and communicating in dolphin to make your business win, watch me get a scuba tank. Like, I'm just gonna do whatever I need to do, because so many people start businesses like they have an option, because they do. I have started a business because I never had an option. So for somebody to say, oh, it makes me uncomfortable, I'm not sure if I want to grow my business that way, so I'm going to get a loan. I'm going to get venture capital. I'm going to have my family do a seed round. I'm going to ask my dad for money. Like, God bless you. I have no judgment on it, but I started a business and built it however it was because I didn't have any other options. Like, first generation business owner, first generation Latina, as a woman, I've never ever built a business. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. And so I'm like, what's free? And like, my whole motto in like the first 6 years of my business is like, if it's free, it's for me. Like, I'll do it. And so it's just like, I just have a hard time with people acting like that they have options.
Yeah.
Like, if you have options, we'll go right ahead and then leverage those options, pay for those ads, get the loan, get the venture capital, and then do something. But for you to say like, oh, it makes me uncomfortable, I don't want to do it. No problem. But you just don't want a business as bad as you want to be comfortable.
Oh, that's so true. That is so true. Yeah. I think I struggle with it's weird when I have something like coffee and contracts. It's so easy for me to get on camera and talk about it. I think when it comes to, if I'm trying to kind of like I think we hear a lot about personal brand, building a personal brand. A lot of it for me is like where it becomes interesting to me, like, okay, this idea of building a personal brand, it feels like more safe somehow, like, because I could lose coffee and contracts, I'll never lose myself.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm like, I feel like it would be safe for me to build this personal brand so that I have like a backup or some sort of safety net, because
absolutely,
you know, and then, but when it comes to actually doing that, I'm like, if it's not coffee and contracts, like my business, then I feel like there's nothing to talk about. You know what I mean? I'm like, there's nothing to, you know, I don't know. So I think that's where it's kind of like, I start to struggle with it. I'm like, what's the point here?
So when, like, somewhere in the middle of me actually understanding that I had the wherewithal to build a business and then become a CEO, somebody had said, well, brand is your business moat. And I felt like that's true. Like, and then they were citing companies like Apple and Amazon, like their brand is their protection. Yeah. But what I started realizing between both of those was that those companies were extra special because they had an extra moat. So just think of a castle with a moat, and then move out another 3 miles and then put another moat around that. And that's a personal brand. Yeah. And so when you look at Steve Jobs, he was the furthest moat from the castle, but it was a moat. And I started thinking to myself, oh, I think I did it backwards. Like, when I was building a business, I didn't really know how to build a brand per se. I didn't have any money. And I thought, well, like, my brand, I need typography and I need a great website. I need this. And it wasn't that. It was just like my personality. I started realizing that any business I build from now on, God forbid, like, you know, you're not going to lose coffee and contracts. Like, you know, that's not going to be the case, but God forbid, in a pretend world, it happens. Well, you get to pick up your personal brand and move it to your next thing, and it becomes insulation. Like, your personal brand is gasoline. Your personal brand is a match to the gasoline, and your personal brand becomes not like a fire that destroys things, but a fire that burns down and refines like 24 karat gold. So in my mind, 100% you have something to say, but oftentimes we stop ourselves because we're not sure people want to hear it. And I just don't give a rip who wants to hear it, because somebody does. Somebody is looking at you and they see themselves in you, and they don't see themselves in me. Yeah. And so they see you, and they see that you can travel the United States in a camper with her dog, and you can buy multiple properties, and you're a fully independent woman, and you are growing this big thriving business, and you work with a ton of other organizations who are co-signing on what it is you do. And then you have the luxury to find another brilliant person to co-create a new project. And then you've gone through and picked yourself up by the bootstraps and like really succeeded in a difficult market. If you're telling me you don't have anything to talk about, I would look at you and say, I just don't think you're working hard enough.
Yeah.
I know. We were like, you were in that girl's mastermind? Dang. I was like, yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, that's so helpful. I love that. I feel like you just kind of like blew me out of the water. I'm like,
In love. I always say it's just like, I really like, here's the thing. And this is what I say, and it's pretty demented. I'm already saving for my daughter's therapy. If I love you, I'm coming hard for you.
Yeah.
Like, I just like my whole life, I lived a small life. Or not my whole life. I would say, I don't know. Like when I turned 30, I realized I was living a very small life. And then all of a sudden I realized like the stuff that I've done in the last few years, I think to myself, what would have happened if I actually like gave myself like more of a push?
Yeah.
Like what would have happened if somebody just came out and said like, stop, like you have one life. Like, why do you care what they say?
Yeah.
Like all of that. And like, why would you care if you fail? And I know it means a lot and it hurts, but what hurts more?
Yeah.
Like doing something and failing, or just like looking at the end of your life being like, I could have done the thing.
I love that. Yeah, I feel like part of it's like enjoying it too, enjoying the content you create and what you're talking about. It has to be important.
Can we tap there for a second though?
Yeah.
I don't think that you get to enjoy the content you make until you make the content you don't like. Like
until you know what you...
Yeah, because people are like, they make content and it's hard and it takes so long, and then they put it out and then nobody engages, or they look at it and they're like, that is so stupid. It doesn't make sense. And so they don't give themselves like enough kick in the arse to go back and be like, I need to do this like legitimately 99 more times before I have an opinion.
Yeah.
Like you need to have 99 batch days before you have an
That's
opinion
true.
about a batch day.
Yeah.
And so like I want to enjoy the content. Yeah, I want to enjoy my content, but as I'm paying the suck tax, like in 2025,
That's so true.
I will look back and be like, I'm so proud that you did these really awful videos.
That's
like,
so true.
You know,
like
what are you saying? Like, what the hell are you saying, Jasmine? But I'm gonna say thank you. Thank you for doing what it took for you to figure out the work that makes you like light up again.
I love that. That's so true. I'm glad you said that, because I'm like thinking back now to putting out the content for Coffee and Contracts in the beginning. It was so ugly.
Right.
And I'm so glad I did it though, and continue to do it. And I'll even post videos now or get through like an awkward podcast intro and be like, I'm glad I'm doing this now, because like 100 times from now it's going to be so much better.
I mean, and just think of the montage like that you make in 2028 and you're just like where you started.
Yeah, I'm like, oh,
and then
she was so cute.
Exactly.
Yeah, you have to get through that part, the bad part. I want to go look at some old videos of you, of your first videos.
Oh yeah,
on
prepare your heart,
YouTube.
pop some popcorn. I mean, like my hair is so dark. It looks like I like dunked my head in like an ink pot. And like, it was just like out of a box. Like I didn't have money for like a hairstylist. So I was just like, oh yeah, I'm really cool. Like dark hair. And then we lived at the time in a condo that did not get very much, if any, natural light. And so there was this one tiny window in the room that I used for an office. And so I went to Home Depot. I just got this big piece of like flat wood. I think it was 9 feet tall. My ceiling was about 9 foot tall. And then I just cut out magazine photos, and then I glued all the magazine, and then that was like my background. I just stood in front of magazines because I was like, I'm a photographer.
Oh, that's awesome. It's so crafty.
It was ghetto as all get out, but I mean, people watched.
I love that. I was also when I started Coffee and Contracts, I was in a really dark apartment. Like every picture in there is so dark. I tried to take our own photos for the content that we were using, and I was not a photographer like you were. And the photos are so bad. I tried to take like stock photos, and I was like, I had like a white, like one of those poster boards, and they were terrible. They were awful.
And look at, here you are.
I know. I'm like, okay, but then I realized, actually, no, you were not good at that. You should start to invest in buying photos.
Yes.
Okay. Love that. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about is for us starting a new business like Gateless, and for anyone else, any of our listeners who are thinking about starting a business. I'm curious, like, I feel like we're kind of struggling with where to begin and like what's the most important things to do first. So I wanted to see if you could talk a little bit about that, like where to begin when you have an idea for a business, I guess.
Okay, give me a little bit more context.
So like for Gateless, let's talk about Gateless, for example. So we have all these ideas. It's Kara and I, and we could brainstorm all day and talk about like our dreams and ideas and what we want to do. But I think we're having trouble like putting it on the schedule, like, do we, like we're like, okay, we need to build our email list. We need to like post content. We need to have a lead magnet. Like is there like there's no like right or wrong, of course, but like, what would you say like about us getting our sequence in order? Like,
yeah. And so, okay, I totally understand the question. And then it looks different for a lot of different people.
Yeah.
I always say like play to your strengths first. And so the beauty about having a partnership, and there's many people who are listening or watching, and they're like, they're lucky because there's two of them. But this applies even if you were just doing it by yourself. It is really to understand what is your power play. And so the good thing is, if you would allow me to share that I don't know Kara personally, but we've been speaking about your business partner for Gateless throughout the entirety of the morning. And I've distilled, you did not say this, but I have distilled, she's a powerhouse in leadership, team building, culture, sales.
Yeah.
You shine the most in content, marketing, branding. And so then one of the things that we had discussed was who is going to be running, who's in charge of operations. But because that's not necessarily your strength yet, it can be, depending on how much you want to invest in it. But at this point in time, I would simply say, okay, Kara, we have identified your strengths and we've identified mine. Now we both get to concurrently run together and figure out what is the fastest way for us to shine. And so for her, she really loves the podcast. So she should be creating the podcast schedule. How are you guys going to be batching content? If you guys are doing them in person or not, it's not just saying, okay, do you have an hour? Let's do this over an hour, because inevitably things go wrong. It's when do we have 3 hours for us to create at least 3 pieces of content? What are those topics? Who prepares for the content? If this is her domain, is she sending you homework, or is she coming in with all the questions? Is she saying like, this is the theme, and then she comes to you, okay, based on this theme, we're gonna need social posting content around this. And if we do like a month theme or a series on X, all of our social content should be around X. And since it's on social, would you build out a very simple PDF that we could be using as an opt-in around topic X? So now what you guys have just done is built an ecosystem of attention. In the beginning, when you're building a business, yes, you want money, but more what you really need is attention. And then once you get attention, then you can go for proof of concept. Right now, like, people start a business and they're like, great, I'm gonna go make money. Right. But if you try to make money and you don't have attention, you're going to have a heck of a time.
Yeah.
If you try to make money without product market fit, you're going to get a few friends and family to buy from you, but you're not going to get strangers to buy from you. So there is this gestation period of saying, okay, what am I the best at? Does it drive attention? Good thing for Kara is a podcast can drive attention, like on YouTube and audio. Good thing for you, you can drive attention on social. Once you do that, you're gonna wanna go a little bit deeper with what can we give somebody in exchange for their email address? So whatever the opt-in is. Now, you don't wanna go through and create like 13 opt-ins. You're like, that would take me so much time. However, if you decided to create, what is our container for attention? And you're like, what do we think the gateless woman wants to know? And like, this is the juicy topic. And you're like, we believe juicy topic number 1 should be this. So you have 3 podcast episodes around that topic. And if you can bring in a guest to fit in that topic, now you have your whole little container. And then you get to create 1 opt-in around that. Now, the beauty of creating 1 opt-in is, let's just say the juicy topic that people want to know is, how does alcohol affect your business performance? Let's just say that's a topic.
Yeah.
Great. You can create an opt-in for that. And then like 3 months later, talk about like health optimization for entrepreneurs. You don't have to create a new opt-in. You could just use like, hey, and health, big component of it is how often you're drinking. Download this guide. So you're creating 1 piece of content that can list build, even if it's not just around that particular topic.
So whenever you're coming up with your content, do you have like different like foundations that you're talking about in particular times, if that makes sense?
Yes and no. So we believe in branding pillars. Like, these are 3 topics that, well, it used to be, these are 3 topics that I'm known for. And I'm kind of just going through like a personal rebrand. And now I'm saying these are topics I want to be known for. So if you were to ask me to create a 60-minute video on a social strategy for Instagram for a medium-sized business, I, without notes, could talk for 60 minutes on a video and tell that to you. But I'm tired of singing that same dang song with the same 1-string fiddle. So now that I'm testing out new pillars, I can't talk for 60 minutes about it. I haven't done the work enough. So I believe strongly in honing my content around 3 topics. It will always fall around that. However, during times of promotion, I will, yes, focus on a content pillar, but do it around the thing that I'm selling.
Okay.
So pretty low key. We are launching a brand new course for a high-end entrepreneur. And so the month or 6 weeks before that, I'm going to be having podcast episodes that are specific to itching the scratch of the thing that that person wants. So the podcast episodes, if you are listening on a weekly basis, you will hear, oh yeah, I never thought about that. Oh, that's how she does it. I would like to learn more. And then at the end of those, we'll have an invitation to join a live masterclass. So that's the only time that I'm kind of shifting away from the 3 topics of our focus.
Okay.
Because it hones like how overwhelmed you feel by, you can talk about anything.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about anything. Like I want to be known for something. I want to be a specialist in something so that people will pay you more, drive farther. Your personal brand is known for those 3 things. But it just takes a long time to shift the way that people see you.
Sometimes I notice a lot of podcasts that I listen to, like Amy Porterfield is someone who comes to mind, or Jenna Kutcher. It's like, it seems like they almost have like a foundational like message that they are like constantly talking about.
Yes.
And then they like break it down. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like,
absolutely.
It's almost like, and a lot of, they all have books too. So I'm like,
Yeah.
is the key to like write a book and then you just pull from the book? Like,
Well, it's okay. So when you look at it, like if you were to look at it like a circle, and then you have spokes coming from the circle, or like a sunflower, it's like the center of that thing is like what the hill you want to die on. What is your firm belief? And you have all these petals going around it. And so if we use Amy is about like, what is the hill she's going to die on? Is that courses are for business owners.
Yeah.
And so everything around that is, well, how do you get your message out in a course? How do you market a course? How do you build an audience for a course? And so how do you fit your messaging for a course? And so you'll see that there's this common theme around the hill she wants to like evangelize to other people.
Yeah.
And so in a way, it makes content easier to make because it's so streamlined and people know her. Like if you were to say, you can literally like celebrities, if you can ask a celebrity, if there's a celebrity who says, I want to create a course, everybody says you need to talk to Amy.
Yeah.
And that is on the back, like literally a 15 years of saying, I do this, I do this. She is the person. And I feel like I can confidently say, like beyond a shadow of doubt, there are other people who have massive courses teaching how to create a course. And she is, I won't give away all the tea, but she's like 8, 9, 10x what the biggest person in the market's doing. Like she's that person, but she's been doing it for 15 years.
Yeah.
And so we want to get that big. We got to put her head down and talk about the same thing for 15 years.
Is there like a term for that? Like for like the foundational, is that just like content pillars or brand pillars?
It would be content pillars, brand pillars, but like, you know, like her brand, her personal brand has now become so associated with that.
Yeah.
And that's like a personal decision, the same way that, you know, Apple, like when Steve Jobs, like his personal brand became so tied to it because he was all about the innovation. He was all about the product. And so he made that as a decision, but we see lots of other people who have their personal brand and then they pivot a few times over. There's not a right or wrong. It's just how convicted you are around that particular topic, product, offering.
All right, let's look back on some of the questions that I had from the coaching. What is a common mistake you see people make in the beginning stages of starting a community or business?
Doing too much at once. So Rory Vaden says, diluted focus gets diluted results. And so until your project, business, passion is on autopilot, like until you could say, I can take 3 or 4 weeks off and it's not going to have an impact on what that is, taking on anything else jeopardizes the golden egg. And so I always look at every business has a golden egg. You can have 18 products, you can have 1 offering, right? But every business has a golden egg. And so you need to protect the golden egg with everything you do. And anything that takes your attention away without protection of the golden egg puts you distinctly at a disadvantage. And so trying to do too much. It's like if you're jumping from project to project, or you have a business and you finally hit $1 million, you're like, great, I'm so ready for the next thing. And I'm like, $1 million? Like, what's your TAM, your total addressable market? Like, you could do 3 million, like learning what you know. It's like, so you take like whatever. Some people, it would take like 8 years to get to $1 million or 1 year to get to $1 million.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what you just did in a year, you could literally lap it in 1/3 of the time based on what it is you know. And if you could get similar or the same result in 1/3 of the time, why would you build anything else? So it's like, this is focusing on what is the one domino that you can push that has an effect on so many other things. So I'm kind of bullish on that point. It's just like, sticking with the suck longer than most people until you say the thing has got the best attention, it's on autopilot, or it's ready to be sold.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like I needed to hear that because I need to focus on one thing at a time. So what was the term you said in there? TAM?
Yes, total addressable market.
How do you determine that?
Well, okay, so a great question. So coffee and contracts primarily, of course it serves other people, but primarily it serves a demographic, real estate agents and mortgage brokers.
Yeah.
I mean, it serves a bunch of people, but mostly it's that, you could say. So then total addressable market would be how many realtors and mortgage brokers are there in the United States?
Okay.
So then you go to Google and then you say how many, and I like to do the previous year because you don't want to use data and analytics from like 2008 where there weren't a lot of people, right? That was a downturn of like the economic market and homes were bust and realtors went out of business. So I always like to be like, how many realtors or I would do one-on-one. How many realtors are there in the United States in 2022? How many mortgage brokers were there? And then in 2024, I would do 2023. I like to just do the previous year. Then you would just combine both of those things. And then you say total addressable market. Now let's just say, and I don't know your numbers, but because I'm not all that great in math, let's just say you have 10,000 people on the inside of coffee and contracts. But the total addressable market is 4.3 million. You got a long ass time to build out to that market. And you haven't done enough to actually prove that you're a formidable offer within that space. So if there is that much room to grow, then like dig your heels in and figure out what is the path that you want.
Okay. I love that. I needed that.
I know people are going to be listening to this. They're like, you dealt with her like that for months. And I was like, oh yeah.
Like, yep. I got yelled at all the time. Just kidding.
I'm not yelling. Tengo pasión. Okay. Like people are just like, my ears are sensitive.
No, I need it so much. Like it's so helpful.
I remember we went to dinner. Actually, we went to dinner like one block from where we're sitting right now. So we're
really?
recording in Newport Beach. And this is where we had the mastermind. And then we walked to dinner.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. So we were there and I sat next to you and you were like so quiet, like so quiet. And I was like, is everything okay? And you're like, yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It is a lot.
And I think that one of the things that really sparked action was we had an in-person event. So we were in the mastermind about a month and a half or 2 months. And then we had an in-person event. So this is where I got to meet you face to face. And then I sat next to the table and then there was like, we won't talk about them, but there was like a few non-negotiables. And I was like, Haley, I'm sorry. I've been hearing this like second month. So it's either you make the changes and then we get to have a different conversation, or you don't make changes and then I don't want to hear about it anymore because you're making the decision. So if you're making the decision, just own it. And you were like, okay. And then we connected a month later and you're like,
I did it.
Yeah. And I was like, yes, you did. Yes, you did. So,
I needed that kick in the butt to take action for sure. The mastermind was amazing. One thing that I had that was super random, but I wanted to see how often are you analyzing like your analytics on social media? I would like, and
oh, that's a good question. That's a really good question. And I'm not in the weeds like that.
Okay.
Because what I don't want to happen is to go in and take a siloed look and then figure out, oh, I need to change my approach so quickly.
Yeah.
I like to change my approach slowly as all get out. So at the time of this recording, and I don't know exactly when this is going to drop, but maybe I would say like last month, I mean, my reels were just embarrassing. It felt like, what are you doing? Like, why are you even making them? Like, and I wasn't doing anything different. I was like, no, like this is the cadence. And so there is a little bit of a formula that I like to test with. Like, I don't like to post to like iPhone reels back to back. And I say, when I classify an iPhone reel, it's like a voiceover, a trending song, quickly moving content versus a DSLR. So I'll sit with a DSLR and I'm having like my own like thought moment. Like, 3 things that I've learned, or 3 ways to stop, or how to improve. And so I like to break those up every other day. It's just like a personal thing because I like to see how are they performing independent of each other. And no matter what I did, sometimes if I have like an inspirational quote, it gets all warm and fuzzy. Did nothing. I was just like, oh my God, like this is embarrassing. And if I would have stopped, or if I would have said, oh, we need to change strategy, like I just was like, no, I'm just going to sit here. I'm just going to sit here for another 4 to 6 weeks. And I'm going to continue to do it because everybody, so on the inside of Social Curator, we do like live coaching. And so it's great. I'm sure you know, in your community, you're getting real-time feedback of what people are experiencing. And so there's 2 types of people. People who will say, womp womp, and we're all saying it. Everybody's saying womp womp. But the people who say womp womp and stop, and you don't, you win by freaking default.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, well, let me just do what I'm doing. Once the clutter fades and it still is not performing, then I'm gonna have a different opinion. And lo and behold, I've seen an uptick. I was like, your girl's back, because people stopped the race.
Yeah.
And so you don't need to be fast. You don't need to be first. You don't even need to be the best. You just have to say, I'm gonna keep running longer than anybody else.
Yeah, I love that. I've been just looking at the analytics so much with starting a new business like Gateless. I feel like it's important in the beginning, I think, but then as you like build it up, it's like, you know, you start to know what resonates with your audience and stuff. But yeah, it's been helpful. And
it's just like, you know, one thing is like, there's very detailed analytics, and then people get very overwhelmed. It's like, if you're like, you can learn a lot by just clicking on like the Reels tab of your Instagram and seeing which ones were the standout. And you might be like, oh, well, this one got 75 and then one got 10. It doesn't matter. It was a standout. So go back and start asking yourself, if you were to look through your most recent post, like let's just say in the last 30 days, and well, in the last 30 days, functioning on the assumption that you posted 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Like if in the last 30 days you posted like, then that doesn't work there. But I want to look at an aggregate. Let's just say 12 to 15 posts, 20 posts, like between 10 and 20 posts. Which ones did best? And no strings attached. Look at the top 2 that did best and ask yourself, can I recreate this? And then recreate it. You don't even have to think. You've just saved yourself time. Let me recreate it. If it got similar engagement, then you're on to something. Bang that drum until it stops working anymore. So oftentimes people are like, I want to recreate the reel. I got to do the next best thing. No, you don't. You just got to go to the thing that worked and then duplicate it and keep on duplicating it until it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, I love that. And do you do the same thing for like all platforms, you would say? Like YouTube? Are you looking at the analytics there and stuff like that?
Yeah, but that one's just like break your heart, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just bad. Like it's just bad. But I actually did it. I was like, okay, I can lean away from it and just being like, oh, this is embarrassing. Because what happens is I don't have a particularly big channel, but it's like, I don't know, like 78 or 80,000 people. But the vast majority of them came from the photography days.
Oh, yeah.
And so algorithmically, if somebody followed or, you know, subscribed to my channel 8 years ago because they wanted to know about like Aperture 1.2 and now they're seeing, you know, branding strategies, they're just like, I'm just not going to engage anymore. And so when you see that, you look at that video of like freaking 250 views and the production value. Back then, I literally went into my cavernous office and I was like, so today, and there I am and no mic and it's awful. And then now working with a videographer and we have light and I spend time crafting the message for what? And so instead of leaning away from it, I'm like, nope, like everything is content. So brought out like Canon GX7 and I was like, okay, so this was going on. I've spent a year building out this YouTube channel. I've hired professionals to record my videos and it's sucking. Like if I can get past minute 3 of a 30-minute video, wow, I'm clapping myself on the back, which is pretty disastrous. So this is your girl documenting it saying it's changing. So I just recorded. I was like, okay, so I see analytics, like here are like, what is the click-through rate? Like how many people were shown to this? Like what happened? What is about this thumbnail? And so then I just create a hypothesis. Like is the thumbnail because like the typography was big or because I did the freaking thing I said I was never going to do on YouTube, which is the God, it's so stupid. I was like, I hate those.
I don't know why that works.
It works though. It works. Like I just recently I saw, well, not recently, but like maybe like a month and a half ago, Mr. Beast had 2 thumbnails next to them, and the only difference was his like mouth being open and eyes were bigger.
Really?
Versus. Like, and I'm like, God, it's the freaking open mouth thing. Like, I'm shocked.
Yeah, as long as you're shocked in the thumbnail, you've got a great video.
Yes, so leaning into it because, you know, I told the team, I was like, I know it makes no sense and it feels like a waste of time. We're going to come back to YouTube in 3 years. I'm going to have an opinion about YouTube in 3 years. And until then, it's like, shut up and create. Yeah. Because it's a search engine. I need to give my content time to be searched for, which is very different than content that we're putting out on Instagram and Facebook. That is stumble upon. So when you think of your marketing, you have stumble upon and search, both S's. Now, stumble upon is great because your friends will like it or it will get shared, and so you stumble upon it. But the stumble upon does not really exist in Google. It doesn't really exist in YouTube. It's search-based intent. So people will be searching for longer. Like I have to know that this video that got like 1 million views on Instagram, it's died its death. No one is gonna search 6 or 8 months for that content anymore. It's dead.
Yeah.
But with YouTube, one piece of content lives on in perpetuity. And here's the crazy thing. Like you and I are having this podcast and Gateless is what it is, right? And you guys are building out your content. What if, like from my lips to God's ears, I'm gonna dream big. What if I get so big? Like so big. Something happens in my life and my career where I become the first Latina to sell a $1 billion company and I IPO and I'm ringing the bell at the stock exchange. When people start searching for me, the content we created 4 to 5 years earlier is going to be indexed. And so the content you think that you're watching that nobody is watching has such opportunity because you don't know who's sitting in front of your microphone. So you do the damn work until that person gets important. And along the way, you get important too.
That's super interesting. I love that, the search for versus stumble upon. That it's like TikTok is kind of becoming both that. You're stumbling upon and searching for.
Yes.
It's interesting.
Yes.
Very interesting.
And the better your search gets, like the more you search, like the more that you follow a particular hashtag or engage, or even, you don't even have to engage. Like TikTok algorithm is so sick good that you don't even have to do any engaging. It will just watch where your eyes are watching and how long you stay on that video, that it's going to continue to serve up that content. So your stumble upon is actually search-based, based on your tendencies, which is slightly different than some of the other algorithms and the way they're serving up content right now.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I wonder how long content's going to live on TikTok. Like, you know how... Like it
will be nothing like YouTube. And I actually have just been listening to a lot of conversations around like, what do digital, I mean, we're geeking out. I mean, is the video crew tired of us? I'm sure they are. They're like, come on guys. No, but this is so important. And I really, really, really want us to like put a stake in the ground. There's going to be a thing around digital identities. And like what happens is, you know, prior to World War I, people didn't have passports. And then after like Americans were traveling to Europe and there was like a lot of things and we had to identify who are we as a human, who do we belong to? What tribe, what people, what land are we from? So then people walked around with this thing with a passport. Were you mandated to get a passport? No, but then it led to a question of, well, if you're not getting a passport, are you American? And so now what's happening is that there's no borders on social media. And so now there are people in different countries who are having opinions about what's happening in other respective countries when they don't have a vested interest. And so now what we see is like people are campaigning against TikTok, but I think it's gonna be less against the platform and more for who are we listening to? Because all of a sudden on Facebook, when you have accounts that look like they're like born and bred in America and it's actually a Russian bot or actually somebody who's campaigning against our political election and not being a taxpayer or not understanding who we are as Americans, I have an issue with that. And so I think that there's gonna have to come a point where governments are going to say, listen, this is a free nation. We can talk and be other, but there's gonna have to be some sort of identity that's tied to who we are and where we hail from, because I wanna listen to opinions, even if I don't agree. I don't have to agree, but if I know that you're an American and we want to raise our children in this country, I'm gonna listen to you differently than I am somebody who's not in this country and has an opinion about a legal system or a judicial system they have no opinion about. So anyway, welcome coming to my TED Talk. Like, I know people are like, she's into social media. I'm like, no, I'm into like humanity and documenting and showing up and doing crazy things and living the American dream. And like, I want to do everything I can to defend those things. And so anyway, we just went there. Welcome to Gateless, the show you want to. Like,
we're not gatekeeping over here.
No, not at all. Not at all.
No, I mean, it's all super strange and hard to wrap your head around, especially all the AI stuff and like the meta. What is it now? You can like talk with like Kylie Jenner on Instagram.
Right. You like, have like, what I think it's called like the friend or like who you're, it's like basically like an AI avatar.
Yeah. I don't even know where it's going, but it's a little scary.
Well, this is why we need to have conversations around what it is. Here's the thing. There's so many people who don't live where we live, right? Even in America, they don't have access to it. So I have no problem with people coming up with avatars and then being friends with avatars. The thing I have a problem with is I want to know if I'm talking to the avatar.
Yeah,
and so I just think those are all conversations that we have.
Yeah, a lot of it needs to be transparent, and that needs to be a big thing. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. This was so much fun. I feel like I got a ton from it, and I hope our listeners did too. I'm sure they did.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. And on Instagram, what's your Instagram handle?
At Jasmine Star.
Okay.
And at JasmineStar.com.
Okay, where they can find you.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, babe.
All right.